Hey, this is Snowblitz.
Syx String.
Starlight Ironhoof.
Strain.
And Zeta Prime.
And this is Elements of Harmony. Tonight on the show, we're featuring an extremely talented orchestral composer and jazz musician. Perfect Harmony has been creating works for the pony fandom since late 2012 and has recently released some notable tracks such as Gathering Darkness and What Once Was, both of which were featured on previous live episodes of EOH. And tonight, we preview some more tracks from his ongoing epic Tales of Equestria. Perfect Harmony is a talented up-and-coming artist, and he joins us here tonight. Perfect Harmony, hello.
Hello. Wow, quite an intro.
We like to start with a bang, I guess.
Yeah, we like to butter up our guests.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. That's basically what happens.
Before we devour them.
Oh, jeez.
Well,
I told you guys I'm not into vor.
Oh, gosh.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
I didn't.
Well, we weren't going to talk about the Rift anymore, so let's stop that.
All right.
Moving on then.
So, Harmony, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah. So, just real quick, I just wanted to mention that you've been doing works for the pony fandom since December of 2012. 2012?
Yeah, that's it.
Right. And then all through 2013. And I noticed that you don't have a ton of subscribers on the YouTubes, but you've been keeping busy, presumably.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of subscribers, but I guess it's kind of due to the fact that I don't really put myself out there that much. I do try and get on EQD as much as I can,
Mm-hmm.
but it could also help if I put out music faster. But a lot of the music I do is not necessarily for the fandom, because I do a lot of music for my school and other things like around my town.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a sort of PR thing, I guess. And I suppose appearing on our show tonight might help with that a little bit, hopefully.
So I hope, yeah.
Not with these hosts.
Well,
Well,
You know you're making fun of yourself too, right, Starlight?
Yep.
Well, it's what we're best at.
Pretty much.
That and mini fridges.
But I just wanted you to sort of outline real quick. How would you describe yourself as a Brony musician?
So I guess I should start with saying I got into the fandom by hearing it from a friend, and I was a bit skeptical at first. And I think this was around late 2011 or so. And I really liked the music from the show, and I really liked making music, so it was kind of like match made in heaven. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started after the season 2 finale. That kind of gave me a lot of inspiration, I guess, because the finale was really cool. So I started with my first track, which was Power of the Elements, which was basically themed at an epic fight scene at the end of, I think it was the second part, right? Second part?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was.
And then after that, I showed it to some friends, and they said I was doing a good job, so I just kept going.
What about the show's music drew you toward it?
So I watched a lot of cartoons as a kid and really liked the music that shows like SpongeBob, like Ren and Stimpy had.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the show, especially the background music, has a lot of that. Well, it is a cartoon, so it has cartoony music.
Yeah, so you were actually drawn by the background music, not the feature songs.
The score, as opposed to the songs.
Yeah, the feature songs help too, especially songs from season 2. I think that season had the best music out of any season. I mean, season 4 does have some good tracks, but
Yeah, season 2 definitely had a bunch that are really memorable.
Yeah, they really did had a lot of episodes that were very popular.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just wanted to highlight that because most people who talk about the music kind of forget the score.
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I really love the score, and I really love how for every character, a lot of people don't notice, but especially for like characters like Rarity or whatever, she almost always has like a harpsichord entrance or something like that. Each character is themed.
Harpsichord motif, yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I never really paid attention to that.
That's something that I don't think anybody has ever mentioned on this show before.
It's worth mentioning, too, that Daniel Ingram doesn't do the score for MLP at all.
Yeah, he just does the music.
William Anderson does the score.
Yeah, William Anderson's really talented. But the actual music, singing in the show is really good too. I think Find a Pet is still probably my favorite track after all of the seasons.
Oh, nice.
That is a good song.
Find a Pet was really good.
Mhm,
Yeah.
for sure.
Find a Pet's like the first one that I actually showed it to my sister, and she was like, "This was actually kind of good."
Find a Pet is one of your favorite songs, but do you have a favorite score? Do you have a score that you really liked or really inspired you in one of your songs?
I think the score from the season 2 finale, and also, I don't remember what episode it is, the one where they're going to Appaloosa, and then they meet all the bison. That was really good too. And then
Over a Barrel, I think.
yeah, Over a Barrel, yeah, that's it. But yeah, and then also the first episode of season 4, Princess Twilight Sparkle, right? Especially that whole scene where she goes back and Luna does that thing where it's like, and it will be mine!
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then there's the music behind that. That was just awesome.
Yeah.
That was like, gave me the chills.
Yeah, I remember seeing the storyboard preview to that, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great thing for them to leak, because it's like, oh, is Nightmare Moon returning? Oh my god!
To be fair, though, I actually completely called the entire synopsis of that entire episode.
I remember that.
Did you really?
Yeah, he did.
Oh my god, I did not know that.
Just going back to the music a little bit, you obviously have quite a bit of music experience before getting into the fandom. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I've been playing the piano for 14 years now, I think it is. I do a lot of solo performances, and it's kind of different from what the music that I make, because I was raised like a jazz and blues musician.
Oh, nice.
So I do a lot of local shows, things like that. I'm also pretty fairly well connected with some like big name jazz musicians, blues musicians, and I also play tenor saxophone in our school symphony band.
Nice.
But I didn't start composing till around 2008 or 2009 because we had a theory class, and I really liked it a lot. So I started to write music for the school symphony, and I did get one piece performed, but it was a lot harder than I expected, and I wasn't that skilled at the time.
Well, that's good, though. That's like a lot of people go through high school music class and never write a piece of music at all.
Yeah, there's that.
It's very rewarding to get a piece of music written.
I want to talk about the piano thing for a second. So you said you do solo performances with your piano and stuff like that?
That is correct, yep.
Do you play mostly classical pieces, or do you do jazz pieces with piano?
Jazz and blues.
Jazz and blues. That's so cool.
What veins in jazz? Do you do like stride piano or Thelonious Monk type thing? Like, what do you do?
A little bit of everything. I mostly do like stride piano, like Albert Ammons, like Pete Johnson,
Okay.
Yeah.
and like all those old guys.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, jazz piano is like one of the coolest things I've ever heard.
It's really entertaining.
it really is.
It's so awesome. And then it makes you feel really bad because you're like, how all of these chords.
Well, it's not as hard as it seems. I mean, a lot of it is kind of just making it up as you go along, but there is the basic structure. But it also helps that I'm near Detroit, so they have massive jazz festivals there every year.
Cool.
Have you ever performed at any of the jazz festivals?
Yes, I've also done a lot of smaller shows, like at this place called the Arc. It's kind of like a small theater, but it has a lot of people that come to it, and it kind of has like I kind of want to say like dedicated audience that come for like stride piano kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
I also know a lot of big names, like I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Bob Seeley or Dr. John or Mr. B and anything like that, but they're big names not just in Michigan, but around the country.
I've heard some of those, yeah. That's pretty cool. I don't want to leave this quite yet. Have you done any dueling piano?
We call it 4 hands, and sometimes 6 hands. And it's basically where 2 people can get together, and it's basically stride piano, but with 2 people sitting at the same piano, or you can have a 6%. We've done it with 2 pianos before, and that is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised with the jazz scene up in Michigan, because I always figured it was more of a Chicago, Kansas City, New Orleans thing, but when I was in Lansing, I went to a bar called Dueling Pianos, and they actually had some stride players come in and duel it out. It was really neat.
Oh yeah, you'd be surprised. There are a lot of things up there.
Just to go back, when Syx was mentioning the whole jazz piano thing, you said that it's not that hard and that there's some kind of form. Is that referring to like 16-bar blues or anything similar to that?
Yeah, exactly that. But I guess it depends on the type of style that you're playing. For like stride piano, it's mostly like that, you know what I mean? But you have different variations, like your 8-bar blues, 4-bar blues, and things like that. But it all basically follows the same format.
Would you be able to explain that real quick, just for the viewers who don't know anything about what a 16-bar blues is?
Yeah, sure. Well, I do primarily 12-bar blues, which is basically, so if I'm in the key of C, right?
Sure.
The left hand will do C for 4 measures, then I'll go to F, and then, or I guess it would be 16-bar. So C, then F is C, then I'll go up to G, and then G is kind of like the turnaround, and then it restarts on C.
Oh, okay.
So 1 4 1 5.
Yeah, like that.
Referring to the intervals there. So root, fourth, root, fifth.
Yeah.
Any other instruments do you play besides the piano?
Well, I play the tenor sax. I did play the alto sax, but I moved up to tenor. And I have bowled around with guitar, but I haven't gotten very far.
I really like that you said you moved up to tenor, because tenor sax is where it's at. All you alto saxophone players, get on that level. Just grow some cojones, okay?
Well, from my experience, I like tenor because it's not alto and it's not bari. Still do get some fun parts, but you're kind of in the middle, so you can get both.
Oh yeah, and there's some really great jazz tenor sax players that they would use interesting techniques and make it almost sound like an alto when doing these sweet melodies. It was,
But yeah, you can do anything.
yeah.
And the tenor sax is lower than an alto, right?
It is.
Okay. I was trying to figure out which one that I actually like more, and I think tenor is my favorite.
No, the tenor is actually where it's at.
From the highest range to the lowest range, it would be a soprano sax, an alto sax, a tenor sax, and then the baritone sax. Which, if you recall our discussion, I believe 3 weeks ago, I think was Sketchy, we talked a little bit about vocal ranges, and it's the same kind of thing. It's the exact same classifications.
That was Fritzy.
Was it Fritzy?
Yeah, it was Fritzy, because we were talking about vocals.
Oh, okay.
So then it would be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There's actually, I've never seen one, but there's actually, I don't remember the exact name, but there's something lower than the baritone saxophone.
Really?
I think it's the bass saxophone or something like that, but that thing is massive.
Oh man, I bet.
I might have to look that up.
Shaking the floor massive.
You need a shopping cart to roll it around.
Oh my god.
That's pretty epic.
Out of curiosity, did you pick up the tenor saxophone as part of a school band type of deal?
Yeah, I started with alto saxophone way back in, oh god, I don't even remember whenever like school band starts, so like 4th or 5th grade, right? Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, 4th grade is, I think it starts.
And then after that, my band teacher was like, all right, well, now we're going to move you up to tenor saxophone, because we didn't have many at the time, and he had a lot of alto saxophone, so he moved me up to tenor, and then I've had opportunities to play different types of saxophones, but I just stuck with tenor because it's my favorite.
Once again, that term moving up, that's how you move up in the world, sax players.
And it's funny too, because if I ever hold like an alto saxophone or anything, I'm like, oh my god, this thing's so small. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they are. I remember seeing a soprano saxophone. It looks like it's like made for a little kid.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
very puny saxophone. It really is.
Yeah. If you're not Kenny G, don't touch it.
Kenny G. Didn't he? Oh, yeah, no, he plays saxophone. I'm thinking of in Master of Disguise when he's playing an oboe or something, and he starts playing the.
It's funny, it reminds me of the Pink Panther theme, which I think is a staple for tenor sax players.
And where all this tenor sax love came out of the blue, my dad played tenor sax, and he would practice it almost every night when I was a kid, and I just thought it was one of the coolest things ever.
Aw.
My dad was actually in a band, and back to that bass saxophone thing, I remember he told me a story once where his grandma came over to stay with them because she was getting old, right? And he was practicing, and he played one note, and she goes, "That's it, I'm ready to leave."
Aw.
Dang.
Because it's so loud.
Yeah, yeah. That's the kind of the bane, I guess, of parents of children who study music. It's always going to sound terrible at the beginning.
Speaking of banes and struggles, might as well move on to our first song, which is a preview and a continuation of Perfect Harmony's Tales of Equestria epic. It is Solar Struggle, and this is Elements of Harmony on Everfree Network.
Well, I don't know how we went from all that scandalous jazz to a refined contemporary piece, but well done, sir.
Oh yes,
Thank
quite. Golf clap.
That was a fantastic preview of Solar Struggle, one of the upcoming songs from Perfect Harmony's Tales of Equestria epic. So, one of the things I noticed when looking through your stuff is that there's a lot of things in there about the sun. And I just wanted to ask you, are you on the side of the Solar Empire or not?
Praise the sun.
Yay!
No.
Yay! Yes! Yes!
Oh.
Shut up,
I
Luna
knew it!
fanboys.
I can totally sense other Solar Empire supporters from a mile away.
Which the answer is no one.
Shut up, Snowblitz. I find this interesting, actually, because I find the relationship between Princess Celestia and Twilight to be kind of inspiring, and I find Princess Celestia as a character to be very interesting. I don't know if people would consider her not particularly diverse as compared to some other princesses or not, but tell us a little bit about what do you think about Celestia and her relationships, I guess.
There's so many things about the show that I wish would happen, but I'm guessing that they won't happen because the show has to stay primarily for its target audience. But I wish that we got to see more about the princesses, because it seems like they just get shafted all the time, especially Luna. I just wish there's more character development, I guess, because they seem that they're only there when they need to be there.
Well, there is the Journal of Two Sisters, if you haven't heard of that will be coming out, written by Amy Keating Rogers. And that's supposed to flush out a lot with the princesses. I know it won't be in the show, but it is canonical.
There we go.
So, what made you want to write this?
Well, it goes along with the Tales of Equestria, and The way that I'm kind of structuring this is not the normal way that I make music. Like, usually I'll go in and I'll have a set idea. I work on one song at a time and I start another song until it's finished. But with this, I kind of have a lot of ideas for what I want to do. So I have a lot of music that's been started that's not even close to being finished. And if you looked at it, it'd be like the ramblings of a madman. But a lot of the songs are started, some of them are halfway through, but I'm always getting new ideas, and then whatever I feel strongly about at the time, I just continue working on that. So these songs actually won't be towards the end. They'll be towards the end of the album, happen much later.
A little bit about Tales of Equestria for people who aren't in the know. What exactly is the kind of story of that? And is this like a narrative piece, or what is it exactly?
I'm still struggling to define what I want it to be. Basically, it's kind of a way for me to focus my ideas. It'd be cool if there was like an actual like storyline or if someone could write like a fan fiction about it.
You hear that, you fanfiction writers?
Chances are it'll probably happen.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but it's definitely something for the music to follow a form, to follow an order.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm using it as right now.
So would you say it's more like in classical pieces where just instrumentals that convey these mental images that you get in your head, telling the story through the movements of the music?
Yeah, it's like a tone poem, so yeah.
Okay.
Tone poem, I've never heard that.
Tone poems are something that started appearing in the Romantic era, because before then, music was made, I don't want to say all music, but a lot of music was made for like religion, praise God. But in the Romantic era, that's when people started breaking all the rules that were set up and established at the time, and music took more of a form for people to tell stories, to instill emotion into the listener's ears.
Yeah, and the tone poems don't always have to be original works. They can be based on things like there are plenty written on Shakespearean plays.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
What inspired you to start on this epic?
I don't remember what it was, but I saw this Battle of Equestria or something, this big epic orchestral suite, and I can't for the life of me right now remember who it was by.
Is it pony related?
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about. Is it the stuff by Bosch Script or?
No, that doesn't sound familiar.
Boschfire?
Boschfire, yeah, that's what I meant.
It is Botchfire.
It is? Alright. But yeah, I wanted to do something like that.
When you sit down to just relax and listen to music, what kind of music do you typically listen to?
That's a good question. It depends what I'm in the mood for. Lately, I've been listening to a lot more jazz and blues, but usually I'd listen to classical music, preferably Bach or Beethoven, sometimes Shostakovich. It varies.
Okay, and would you say that those are also some of your leading influences on your compositions?
Yeah, because when I'm not writing pony music, I'm kind of required by my school to follow Western art music, the form that is created, as most people know, like classical music. But I do get a lot of inspiration from big name film composers like Hans Zimmer, Danny Elfman.
Yes.
I think
Yay.
one of you said James Horner, which is really cool because I really like him too. But I actually do like Stuart Copeland a lot. His orchestral works, his latest orchestral works are pretty good.
Since you did mention your school, do you think going to school for composing and being required to create certain music, do you think that affects the way you create music in your leisure time?
If anything, I have more freedom, because when you're learning music like that, and I don't regret learning music like this because you have to learn the rules in order to break the rules, right? But you have to, if I were to bring music, my teacher, I'd be slapped on the wrist. This is wrong. You can't do this. You know what I mean? But it's kind of interesting having to follow like a certain form. And then when I make music on my own, I break those rules and I'm able to just write whatever I'm feeling, whatever I want.
So you just write all the parallel fifths you want, basically, is what you're saying.
If I want my song to sound nasty.
What some people have said is that the worst thing you can do if you love music is to study music.
I have heard that before.
No, I think it's less that it's bad to study music and more that it's bad to be taught music.
In university or specifically, yeah.
Yeah.
Studying music is fine,
learning about theory and learning how to talk about what you actually want to talk about is a good thing. But when you have someone telling you this is how you do it, this goes here, this goes here.
Yeah, that's the part I don't like. I mean, I enjoy theory, but I don't enjoy it that much purely for the fact that you can't do whatever you want. You need to follow what the guidelines are.
Yeah, and also in that university construct, musicians, a lot of us have egos, let's just be honest, and you get an instructor just saying, you can't do this. I was very fortunate. My theory instructor recognized, yes, there are times to break the rules, but music's one of those things, it's best to know the rules so you know how to break them.
I had a moment like that way back when I started taking the class, and we were assigned to do 16 measures, and I wrote what I thought was good, my opinion of what was good, and I showed it to my teacher, and he goes, "What is this? No, this is wrong. No."
Yeah.
One of the things that Tim brought up was knowing the rules of music so that you can break them. And just to sort of tie things into jazz is kind of about breaking the rules, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess you could say that, because if you look again with the Romantic, where people started breaking the rules, within the Romantic period, you have the 1920s and stuff like that, where jazz merged. So it's kind of, I don't find it distracting. I'm able to section it off pretty well and think, all right, now I'm going to be doing this type of music. But it is kind of hard transferring between the two, and I do have to catch myself sometimes.
Can you talk about the balance between classical and jazz? For example, how they interact or oppose from each other?
How they interact. Well, a lot of jazz is improvisation. And it's actually funny because when people look at classical music nowadays, or whenever I need to perform something classical, especially in a university, improv arguably did start from classical music. That's how they did it back then. And now you have to play it this certain way. If you're playing Bach, you have to play in the correct temperament. You can't use your sustain pedal too much or else you're criticized for it, which is kind of infuriating because it's kind of why we've seen a decline in it, because it's hard to get into it if you can only do it one way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for jazz, I mean, you're free. You're not free to do whatever you want. I mean, this is not what do they call it? Modern jazz or whatever.
Freeform jazz.
Where it sounds like somebody just slapping notes on the...
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't stand free jazz. Ugh.
Someone's having an asthma attack while they're playing a tuba or something like that.
Yeah, someone's having a seizure or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you look at it, they are kind of closely intertwined, but at the same time they're not.
Yeah, actually, there's multiple points that I want to make right now. But first of all, I do want to jump back. When we were talking about rules and stuff like that, there are rules for a reason, because like you said, in freeform jazz, it doesn't always sound that great. And the rules are there because people have been studying what is pleasing to the ear for a long time. So when you break rules and it sounds good, then it's awesome. But sometimes you can break rules and they sound terrible.
Yeah.
Say you want to make all of your chords in a song major. Not good idea.
He's not good idea.
He's bad idea.
No, but Miles Davis bitches brew, good idea.
Oh, yes.
One thing I want to bring up real quick that I just kind of was thinking about is how in cartoons and stories and TV shows a lot of times, they kind of associate jazz music with maturity. You're a real adult when you can start appreciating smooth jazz.
Are you thinking of SpongeBob?
It's true, though!
See, I don't like that. I don't like that, especially with classical music, because when you're doing that, you're effectively sectioning people off. Saying okay, classical music or jazz is for sophisticated people. Especially with classical right now, the whole way it is, where when you go see a concert, you have to be all, dressed up formally, you have to look nice. Not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But when you do something like that, people are wondering why there's less of an interest, and it's because people are being snobby.
It's not as accessible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny when people do that with jazz because it grew out of the red light districts, and for the longest time, people talked about it like they talk about modern day hip hop and rap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but it's kind of, I don't know, I have to say it's kind of true though. I didn't develop any appreciation for jazz until my 20s. And it was just too far out there. That's all it was. It was just too far out there for me to like learn to appreciate.
Well, that's different for me because I was raised as a jazz musician, and I actually didn't start getting into classical music, like actually enjoying it until much later. So it was kind of the opposite that most people do.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
It really is.
Do you prefer jazz over classical or classical over jazz?
Once again, it kind of, if you're talking about like listening to it, is that what you're talking about, or in general?
In general, like playing it, listening to it, you can have different answers for each one. You can have as many answers as you want.
Yay! For listening, I mean, it's strictly what mood I'm in. Like, if I just want to relax or something like that, I'll put on jazz or blues or something like that. But if I really feel like listening to the music and interpreting it, and I'm kind of cursed now taking all this theory because I'm kind of forced to listen and figure out what the composer's doing and what he's using.
Oh, I hate that.
Like that.
It's so disgusting because you start thinking about, oh man, he used a this here, or used a that there, or I think he should have gone here. And you're like, what am I saying?
Exactly. I've been poisoned.
Yeah. What happened to I like the noise?
Exactly. I was so innocent back then, but now I'm
It
tainted.
sound good.
To kind of go back to ponies a little bit, do you have any inspirations in the fandom?
I do, yeah. I listen to a lot of Carbon Maestro, Griffin. I'm not really into all this electronic and dubstep that when people think of music in the fandom, that's really what they go to. I mean, it's enjoyable.
Hey.
It's enjoyable.
You know what?
But
You're on the right show for that because none of us know anything about that.
Is it bad if I'm raising my hand that he's saying all this?
Yeah. No, it's not that we don't like electro or electronic or
No,
house.
I didn't
any
say
of those,
that.
but-
It's just that it's not our
Yeah.
taste. That's the thing.
No one here is really experienced in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We feel like old people, like saying like, "Turn that music on."
You kids and your hippity hap, get off my lawn.
Well, you're wubbity and dubbity steppity.
Wubbity dubbity.
there are some exceptions. Like, I do actually enjoy like old school rap and things like that, but I can't listen to anything today.
Like some Tupac.
Yeah, like stuff like that.
What did you think about the Pinky rap?
Pardon?
The pinky rap. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. That was cool. That was a good one.
Run PIE.
Well, that was like an old like rap style, not like the new generation
That was
rap.
like mid-90s Will Smith.
Like Tim said, Run PIEs. It did sound like Run DMC a little bit.
But even then, it's not something that I want to like put on. When it's on, I'll be like, oh, this is cool. Not turn it off, turn it off.
So, bringing it back to your music, one of the things that we brought up in the intro was that we have featured 2 of your songs on our live episodes. Those being What Once Was and Gathering Darkness. And I have to say, with What Once Was, I think that was the first one that we featured, actually.
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was the one who put that up.
Yeah, and like just everybody was kind of in awe at the organ work in that. Having a song that features predominantly an organ for the first minute and a half isn't terribly common in the pony fandom. Just tell us a little bit about that song.
Yeah, so I messed around with an idea that I've had for a long time, and I don't know if it's really an original of that idea, but it was basically describing, the 2 sides of Luna. And a lot of people don't realize that it's mostly an internal conflict. She's fighting herself. So that's kind of, the organ is symbolizing, Nightmare Moon. And then I have that section in there where everything's calm. And that's put there intentionally because the ending ends with the organ. It doesn't end peacefully. It ends with the organ because we've seen in the show it did not end peacefully, excluding when she comes back.
I know I messaged you a bit late on that we were featuring one of your songs, but we actually did touch on that a bit in the live episode, just about how you can so much feel the emotions changing with the instruments changing, and I think, was that the one with the French horns in it?
Yeah,
too?
yeah, it had the French horns and the awesome melodies with them.
Yeah, and I think that was very prominent and that came through very well.
Speaking of two sides of Luna, that's a great transition into our next piece that we are featuring tonight called Lunar Reckoning. You are listening to Elements of Harmony here on Everfree Network.
And we're back, and we're going into our tech talk and perfect harmony. First, I would like to just say bagpipes, 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 bagpipes.
Were there bagpipes?
There were bagpipes.
We can't verify if they were bagpipes.
There may be a little bit of bagpipes in there, but I'm not sure I remember.
I think that was the coolest usage of bagpipes I've ever heard.
Yeah, it was pretty nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that was another preview of an upcoming track called Lunar Reckoning.
Off of Tales of
yeah.
Equestria.
I thought it was called bagpipes.
No.
Oh.
Well, bagpipes too.
Lunar bagpipes.
Lunar bagpipes. Bagpipe reckonings.
Quick question regarding the lunar bagpipes. What did they represent in that song?
Honestly, at that time, I was kind of looking for something to add texture to the song. And a lot of the times when I'm picking my instruments, I'll be like, oh wow, I've never used this before. Because I'm trying to use as many instruments as I can, at least once. And I thought it fit pretty well into the song. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to keep it.
So speaking of trying to fit instruments into songs, and just the vast usage of instruments that you use in your compositions, these instruments aren't real, per se, correct?
There are some live instruments that I've used before. There aren't any in these two songs, but a song that I made a while back, I used a real guitar for, and it was A Mark of Happiness. And that was a solo piano accompaniment with guitar, and I actually had a friend do the guitar for it, and it worked out pretty well. I would love to try and use more real instruments, and I do have plans, because over the summer I'm probably going to just delve deeper, spend more time working with music, but I have something not related to Tales of Quest, probably not something that's been like my past work. I'm actually going to try and bring some blues or jazz into it, but it's going to be kind of, I don't know how to really explain it, but I'm going to try to use live piano, live drums, maybe even get some like saxophone and it's going to be a lot of fun. I have some friends who are willing to do it, so why not?
Yeah, and it's awesome to use live instruments, and it's always good when you have players who can actually play these things. But for these instances where we don't have live players, we use something called samples. Would you be able to describe them slightly, what using samples means?
Samples are what you get in Costco.
Ah,
Free dinner.
get out! No, get out.
I'm sorry, the bagpipes fried my brain. I'm so happy.
Just leave this interview.
That bagpipes.
The bagpipes.
Yeah, anyway, samples, sorry.
I mean, once again, I use them because I don't have access to real orchestra, but at the same time, whenever I was debating on using real instruments, it's kind of hard for me because I could time setting up and recording, right? And then even then, I mean, they have to practice the music, you know what I mean? You have to do multiple takes. Or I could just go in and play it myself for whatever instrument So if I had the choice, I would use, and the time, I would use real instruments. But samples, let's say I want, like a cello or something like that, right? I can play whatever I want, and when I play the note, it will play the note. And I can refine it however I want, and it's because it's me who's doing it, and I don't have to try and relay what I want to the player. So it's a lot easier in some aspects.
To illustrate real quick, basically a sampling software is essentially a bunch of pre-recorded sounds that some clever people in a studio recorded with real instruments at one point in time, and then took those samples or shortwave files of like a real cello doing each note individually, both really soft and quiet and then progressively louder and that kind of thing. And they basically take this massive amount of sampled parts of a real instrument and they pipe it into a computer program, do some fancy mathematics that in turn allows us people who use the sampling software to essentially just hit a note on our MIDI keyboard and reproduce that sound.
So it's almost like a soundboard almost?
It is.
It's like a really, really advanced soundboard. Yeah.
Samples in and of themselves are incredible because you actually, there's always a little bit of a difference, but you get pretty similar attack and decay to the instrument that it's being used.
And you can customize it to whatever you want. Like you can add vibrato, you can do anything you want with it to make it sound as real as you can make it. So there's still always the benefit of having a live recording, but sampling is just so much easier.
I suppose one of the things that we should bring up is that samples aren't just used by us poor people who can't afford to hire an orchestra. They're also used by some fairly notable composers in the real world as well. Most notably, I guess, would be Hans Zimmer.
I didn't know that. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, that's right. He does a lot of his music is recorded by a live orchestra, but he also goes back to his studio and adds what he wants into it, which honestly I think is the best way to do it. Because I mean, you have the live orchestra and then you can, let's say like there's something that you forget or something like that. Well, you can just simply add it in. So it makes it that much easier than calling everybody back.
Yeah. And it can also add another layer of depth too. So if you have an actual recorded orchestra and then you add additional parts with a sampled orchestra, it can really make that really, really big sound. Sort of like Pirates of the Caribbean kind of uses that same kind of idea. The main theme where they have those really heavy hits, it's not just an orchestra, but it's also, a sampled orchestra providing these orchestral hits. And I guess, I believe Hans Zimmer worked a little bit on Pirates of the Caribbean, but also was either training or working with Klaus Badelt, who is also a very fantastic composer.
Mm-hmm.
All of these names are going so far over my head, except for Hans Zimmer. I know who he is.
Come on, Syx, get with the program.
Blah, 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 blah. Hans Zimmer, blah, blah, blah.
I just realized we've been talking all this time about samplers, and what software do you actually use for your samples?
Well, my digital audio workstation is Cubase, and they use Contact. And in Contact, alright, I'm going to have to list these off now. I use Action Strings, LA Scoring Strings 1 and 2, East-West, Quantum Leap, Gold, East-West, Quantum Leap, Colossus, Monster Staccatos. I also have a friend who he made his own cello one, so I use that too because for solo cello I can't there's nothing I can find that's better,
Wow.
which is really kind of funny. But yeah, I love the cello. And then there's also lunar bagpipes, which I can't skip.
Oh my gosh, it's real.
Yes, Syx.
That's pretty fantastic, and it's that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we've had a few people on the show who actually use Contact, haven't we?
Yeah, we've had a few people who've used Contact. I believe Carbon Maestro uses Contact as well. I use Contact, but I'm still just using Contact 3 with like the libraries that come with it, which is like a modified version of the Vienna Symphonic Library. But stuff like East-West, that's among the best samples you can get in the world.
And don't forget distorted realities.
What is that?
They have a lot of things in there for like electronic music, but there's also like some cool little loops in there that can add some texture, like dissonance into the music.
Interesting. And one of the things I just wanted to ask about when it comes to actually creating texture and tone with your samples, how much overlap do you have with either, like, say, if you're doing a string section, do you have, I know you use LA scoring strings, which is also a really fantastic library, but do you overlay a lot of different types of strings when you're working on a string section, or do you do a lot of modification with how the samples are played or any of the effects that go on it or anything?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of the times it depends what I'm going for, but the LA scoring strings and East-West Quantum Leap Gold and Colossus, the strings do sound different if you listen to it for long enough. So I use a lot, and I'll just overlap them. I do try and like keep a basic, like all of my bass, then I have my cellos, then my violins, and sometimes viola, because viola is like abused. Nobody loves viola.
I love viola!
Viola's awesome.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty cool.
Honestly, like, viola is probably a result of the generic library that comes with Contact, but the viola has a much nicer sound in like, the Contact 3 library than the violin does.
Playing in orchestras, we always had like 20 violinists, and we had like 4 cellists, and we had like 2 double bassists. But there was almost never like a violist.
The strange thing about the viola is that it's got the same strings, at least standard tuning wise, it has the exact same strings as the cello, and the cello is much bigger, so it is a lot louder and a lot deeper, and so like I guess that's why viola doesn't get a whole lot of love. But I think it's really cool, and
Why not play a cello?
In my high school band, like the violas were the like people who, because you had your moderates who were, into the orchestra, and then you had your hardcore people who loved orchestra, and then you had the people there who made them be there, or who were there because their parents made them be there. And the violas were usually the girls who didn't really know what they were doing, just be pretending to play. So
I stuck to chamber winds. These stereotypes are over my head.
No, what I was gonna say is, I actually could be wrong on this, but the movie Queen of the Damned, there's a piece called "On the Beach," and it's in the movie. It's when, if anybody knows anything about the movie, it's when Lestat's on the beach and there's the gypsies and they're playing the music, and one guy's got a really big old guitar lute looking thing, and then I think the girl's playing a viola, but I'm not entirely sure. But it sounds really cool because they're using like Middle Eastern type scales where they're using microtones and stuff like that. And it sounds awesome. Really cool. But it might be a violin, so I could be wrong.
Microtones. I do not want to touch that with theory.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
Yeah, microtones are...
My brain just can't. I love listening to them. I can't comprehend.
Just for those who don't understand, what is a microtone?
A microtone is what we Westerners call tones or pitches that are in between the typical half-step spacing. Instead of just having, in our typical scales, we have
12 half steps.
Yeah, 12 half steps. 12 notes in a chromatic scale. Middle Eastern music uses, I don't even remember how much, a lot more than that. It's like in the 20s somewhere.
I've heard rumors that some even go up to like 127 in like really far out there countries. Yeah. I don't know if that's true, but
I have no idea.
But that's a big part of why, if you listen to a lot of Middle Eastern music, just the steps between the notes don't sound normal to us, to our ears, because they have that exotic sound because of the microtones.
Yeah.
Okay, so right here, yeah, it says Western 12-tone, equal temperament, blah, blah, blah. That's the archetypical chromatic scale. It says traditional Indian systems use 22 notes in their chromatic scale. There's a word that I don't know how to pronounce. Oh, wait, that's a date.
Are you trying what?
But it says 84 to 87.
Yeah, some get really high up there. It's crazy.
That's taken an interesting twist. We went from samplers to like
Microtones.
microtones. That's a term I haven't heard before, but as you describe it, I've definitely, I know about it.
You don't want to hear about it.
Oh, well, I mean, it's used a lot in, like Indian music and a little bit in Asian music as well.
Even rock music uses it. Like you have
Oh yeah, with guitars and
stuff like implied notes and stuff like that where you bend up but you're not quite to a note but you're almost there.
yeah.
And you just feel that pull but you don't quite get there. That's technically microtonal, even though the guitarist will just tell you, I thought it sounded cool.
It creates some tension and release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's about time for our tech talk. So I just wanted to thank you for coming on Perfect Harmony. It's been a fantastic discussion. It's been great to listen to some of your upcoming music here. You're a fantastic artist, and I hope that your subscriber base grows exponentially in the future.
And to give an early present to those people who should quickly be finding out who you are and subscribing, for those that might be interested, since you haven't produced a lot of pony tracks, but you have been making music for quite a while, and you've been doing a lot of piano and jazz, do you have any tips for anybody who's looking into getting into some of the music that you currently do?
Well, I think the biggest thing is when you start a song, you should always try to finish that song. Because I remember like starting a lot of songs and saying, all right, this isn't going to turn out right, this is going to turn out right. But if you don't finish the song, then that's just it. It's unfinished, and you'll end up having a lot of songs that are not songs. They'll be part of a song, but they're not the complete song. Also, to never be discouraged, because I know it's hard, and I know a lot of people don't admit it, but when you're starting out and you can't figure out what to do, and then you hear someone who's so much better than you, it's discouraging, and you feel like you want to give up. But the more you make music, and the more you try different things, the more you learn. If I look back, even on the first video that I posted on YouTube, I'm like, I can't believe I've come this far. And if you keep trying, you will eventually be there. And things for like samples like that too. I know a lot of, they say that they don't have the money to buy, sample libraries, which in most cases is true, because these things do cost a lot of money. But I started out with, with simple free libraries, and you just keep making music until you're able to buy those libraries, and then your music will be that much better.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for giving us your time, Perfect Harmony.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
This week, coming up on Everfree, on Wednesday, we have KPNY at 7, Into the Spotlight with Asaka Jack at 9, and then on Thursdays, Sketchy Sounds Live at 3 o'clock. All of these times are in Central. Until next time, this is
Forest Rain.
Syx String.
Snowblitz.
Zeta Prime.
and Starlight Ironhoof. Goodbye for now.
this is Snowblitz.
Syx String.
Starlight Ironhoof.
Forest Rain.
And Zeta Prime.
And this is Elements of Harmony. Tonight on the show, we're featuring an extremely talented orchestral composer and jazz musician. Perfect Harmony has been creating works for the pony fandom since late 2012 and has recently released some notable tracks such as Gathering Darkness and What Once Was, both of which were featured on previous live episodes.
And I really liked making music, so it was kind of like match made in heaven. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started after the season 2 finale. That kind of gave me a lot of inspiration, I guess, because the finale was really cool. So I started with my first track, which was Power of the Elements, which was basically themed an epic fight scene at the end of, I think it was the second part, right? Second part?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
And then after that, I showed it to some friends, and they said I was doing a good job, so I just kept going.
What about the show's music drew you toward it?
So I watched a lot of cartoons as a kid and really liked the music that shows like SpongeBob, like Ren and Stimpy had.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the show, especially the background music, has a lot of that. Well, it is a cartoon, so it has cartoony music.
Yeah, so you were actually drawn by the background music, not the feature songs.
The score, as opposed to the songs.
Yeah, the feature songs help too, especially songs from season 2. I think that season had the best music out of any season. I mean, season 4 does have some good tricks.
But you've been keeping busy, presumably.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of subscribers, but I guess it's kind of due to the fact that I don't really put myself out there that much. I do try and get on EQD as much as I can,
Mm-hmm.
but it could also help if I put out music faster. But a lot of the music I do is not necessarily for the fandom, because I do a lot of music for my school and other things like around my town.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a sort of PR thing, I guess. And I suppose appearing on our show tonight might help with that a little bit, hopefully.
So I hope, yeah.
Not with these hosts.
Well,
Well,
You
then.
know you're making fun of yourself too, right, Starlight?
Yep,
Well, it's what we're best at.
Pretty much.
that and mini fridges.
But I just wanted you to sort of outline real quick. How would you describe yourself as a Brony musician?
So I guess I should start with saying I got into the fandom by hearing it from a friend, and I was a bit skeptical at first. And I think this was around late 2011 or so. And I really liked the music from the show, but
Yeah, season 2 definitely had a bunch that are really memorable.
Yeah, they really did had a lot of episodes that were very popular.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just wanted to highlight that because most people who talk about the music kind of forget the score.
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I really love the score, and I really love how for every character, a lot of people don't notice, but especially for like characters like Rarity or whatever, she almost always has like a harpsichord entrance or something like that. Each character is themed.
Harpsichord motif, yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I never really paid attention to that.
That's something that I don't think anybody has ever mentioned on this show before.
It's worth mentioning, too, that Daniel Ingram doesn't do the score for MLP at all.
Yeah, he just does the music.
William Anderson does the score.
Yeah, William Anderson's really talented, but the actual music, singing in the show is really good too. I think Find a Pet is still probably my favorite track after all of the seasons.
Oh, nice.
That is a good song.
Find a Pet was really good.
Mhm,
Yeah.
for sure.
Find a Pet's like the first one that I actually showed it to my sister, and she was like,
Of EOH. And tonight, we preview some more tracks from his ongoing epic Tales of Equestria. Perfect Harmony is a talented up-and-coming artist, and he joins us here tonight.
Perfect Harmony, hello.
Hello, wow, quite an intro.
We like to start with a bang, I guess.
yeah, we like to butter up our guests.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. That's basically what happens.
Before we devour them.
Oh, jeez.
Well,
I told you guys I'm not into vor.
Oh, gosh.
oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
I didn't.
Well, we weren't going to talk about the Rift anymore, so let's stop that.
All right.
Moving on then.
So, Harmony, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah. So, just real quick, I just wanted to mention that you've been doing works for the Pony Fandom since December of 2012. 2012?
Yeah, that's it.
Right. And then all through 2013. And I noticed that you don't have a ton of subscribers on the YouTubes.